I want to take you back to a day that should have been one of the proudest moments of my life. A day every mother dreams about her child's wedding. I had imagined it for years. The white flowers, the music, the moment I would watch my son, my only son, take his vows and start his own family. I thought I would sit in the front row, my hands clasped tightly, tears in my eyes, knowing that all the sacrifices I had made were worth it. But the reality turned out to be something else entirely. The church was grand, almost too grand, for the modest life I had always lived. The kind of place where gold shone from the altar, and chandeliers glimmered as though each drop of crystal was mocking me. I walked up the steps slowly, holding the small clutch bag I had bought months ago. Cheap, but neat. I had even gotten my hair done at the salon the day before, a rare treat for myself, because I wanted to look presentable for my son's big day. The ushers at the door looked confused when they saw me. One young man, no older than 20, exchanged a nervous glance with his colleague before approaching me. His voice was polite but hesitant. "Good afternoon, ma'am. Can I see your invitation card?" My heart skipped a beat. I fumbled in my purse and pulled it out. It wasn't the glossy gold invitation I had seen online when my son's fiancée posted about their dream wedding. Mine was printed on simple white paper, mailed late, as though I had been an afterthought. Usher's eyes flicked over it, then back to me. "Yes, thank you. Please, this way." But instead of leading me down the grand aisle toward the decorated pews filled with family and friends, he stopped at a side door. He gestured toward a narrow corridor where a few plain chairs were lined up against the wall. No flowers, no music, just silence. I froze. "Excuse me, isn't this outside the hall?" The boy cleared his throat, clearly embarrassed. I'm sorry, ma'am. The instructions were that this is your seat." I felt my stomach tighten. Surely, this had to be a mistake. I laughed nervously, the sound trembling in my throat. No, I'm the groom's mother. My son is." He cut me off gently, his eyes darting away. "I know, but this is what we were told." I stood there, my feet glued to the marble floor. People were streaming in behind me, dressed in beautiful clothes, their perfumes trailing through the air. Laughter, chatter, excitement, all rushing past me like a tide that I was excluded from. And then, one voice stood out. My son's new mother-in-law, draped in silk and diamonds, walked by with her friends. She glanced at me, her lips curling into the faintest smile before she turned her head away, as though I were no more than an inconvenience. I sank into the hard wooden chair in that corridor, my hands trembling in my lap. Through the closed doors, I could hear the music begin, followed by the voices of guests as they rose in unison. I wasn't part of it. I wasn't meant to be seen. At that moment, every sacrifice I had made flashed before my eyes. I remembered the nights I stayed up late sewing clothes, so my son would have something decent to wear to school. The mornings when I left before dawn, to clean offices, then rushed to the bakery for my second job, just so he could eat properly. The Christmases when I bought him gifts with money I didn't have, telling him Santa had come, while I sat in silence with nothing for myself. And now, after all those years, after raising him alone when his father walked out on us, I was seated, outside, as though I were nothing. I could feel tears pressing at the corners of my eyes, but I forced them back. No one was going to see me break. I reached for my phone. My hands were shaking so badly that I almost dropped it. My thumb hovered over the screen, scrolling through names until I stopped at one contact, a name I hadn't dialed in months, maybe even years. I hesitated. Was I really about to do this? But then, a burst of laughter echoed from inside the hall, the sound of my son's happiness, shared with everyone but me. Something inside me hardened. I pressed call. The line rang once, twice, then a familiar voice answered, calm, but firm hello. I swallowed hard. My voice was barely above a whisper. "It's happening again. They don't want me here." There was a pause, the kind that feels heavy with unspoken understanding. Then the voice replied, steady and determined, "Stay where you are. I'm coming." And in that moment, my heart began to pound for an entirely different reason, because I knew that phone call would change everything. I don't know how long I sat in that narrow corridor, my hands clenched together in my lap, my ears straining to catch fragments of the wedding inside. Every cheer, every swell of the organ music, every burst of laughter felt like another knife cutting into me. From where I was seated, I could glimpse shadows moving through the frosted glass door, guests in fine suits and dresses swaying with joy, mothers dabbing their eyes with handkerchiefs, fathers holding their heads high. I should have been among them. I should have been proud. Instead, I was invisible. The phone felt heavy in my hand, though I had already hung up. My heart was thudding in my chest, not just from hurt, but from the knowledge of what I had set into motion. When I called that number, I wasn't dialing a friend. I wasn't even dialing family. I was calling someone who had once promised me help when the world turned its back on me, someone I hadn't wanted to involve in my life again. But at that moment, I had no choice. The sound of footsteps pulled me back. The usher from earlier passed by, avoiding my eyes. I forced myself to speak, my voice low. Do you know if my son knows I'm seated here? He froze, shifting uncomfortably. His silence was answer enough. Please, I whispered, just tell me the truth. He glanced around nervously before leaning closer. It wasn't him. The seating chart came from her family. My chest tightened. Her family, the bride's side. So it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't oversight. It was intentional. They had decided I wasn't good enough to be seen, and my son, my only child, hadn't stopped them. I sat back down, my fingers curling around the clutch bag so tightly that I thought the fabric would tear. I tried to tell myself he didn't know, that he was too caught up in the rush of the day, too blinded by love to notice the way his own mother was being pushed aside. But deep inside, a colder voice whispered, he knew, he must have known. My eyes blurred with tears, and I was so lost in thought that I almost didn't hear the sound of a car pulling up outside the side entrance. Not one of the sleek black luxury cars that had been arriving all morning, but an older vehicle, its engine rattling like an old friend clearing its throat. The door opened, and a figure stepped out. I rose slowly, my breath catching. It was him. His hair was grayer now, his shoulders a little more bent than when I last saw him, but his presence filled the space immediately. He adjusted the dark coat on his shoulders, his eyes searching until they found mine. For the first time that day, I felt something close to relief. He walked toward me without hesitation, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. Claire, he said, his voice firm yet soft. I came as fast as I could. I nodded, unable to speak. My throat was too tight. He glanced toward the closed doors of the hall, then back at me. His jaw tightened. So they did it again. I swallowed, trying to steady myself. I thought it would be different this time. I thought my son would stand up for me. The man's eyes softened. Maybe he doesn't know. Or maybe he's too afraid to go against them. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to cling to any explanation that would make my son innocent, but the longer I sat there, the harder it became to convince myself. From inside the hall came a sudden swell of music. The bridal march. Guests rose to their feet, their applause thundering through the walls. My son was walking down the aisle, and I, his mother, was not there to see it. The man beside me placed a hand gently on my shoulder. Do you want me to stop this? He asked quietly. His words sent a shiver through me. Stop it. Could he? Would he? I shook my head slowly, though my heart was racing. Not yet. Just stay with me. He nodded, and so we sat together on those plain wooden chairs while, only a few feet away, my son pledged his life to someone else. A moment I had dreamed of witnessing, stolen from me. But as the vows echoed faintly through the door, I knew one thing for certain. The call I had made was only the beginning, because this man, the one sitting beside me now, carried with him secrets that could shatter the perfect image my son and his new family had worked so hard to build, and whether I liked it or not, those secrets were about to surface. The music had faded inside, replaced by the hum of voices, the clinking of glasses, and bursts of laughter. The ceremony was over. The guests were moving toward the grand reception hall, where champagne was waiting on silver trays, and chandeliers spilled golden light across polished marble floors, and me, I was still standing by that side door, invisible, forgotten, except I wasn't entirely alone anymore. The man I had called Daniel stayed beside me, calm but sharpened, as though measuring every detail. His presence was unsettling to me in ways I hadn't expected. He had once been part of my past, someone I thought I had left behind forever, but now here he was, watching me with the same steady gaze I remembered from years ago, when we had both been younger, more reckless, more desperate. I don't belong here, I murmured, half to myself. Daniel tilted his head slightly, and yet you do, more than most of the people in that room. My chest tightened. If that were true, they wouldn't have pushed me out here. He didn't argue. He didn't need to, because deep down, I knew he was right. The sound of applause thundered through the thick walls as the bride and groom entered the reception hall. My son, my little boy. I could picture him in his tailored suit, smiling nervously, holding her hand. The thought brought both pride and a sting of betrayal. I wanted to run inside, to grab him by the arm, to demand why I wasn't standing beside him on this day that was supposed to be ours. But something in me hesitated. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe it was because I already knew the answer. Daniel's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. You called me for a reason, Claire. You knew this would happen. I shook my head, though part of me knew he was right. I hoped it wouldn't. His lips curved into a humorless smile. Hope doesn't change the truth. Before I could respond, the side door opened. A waiter in a crisp white jacket stepped out, balancing a tray of empty glasses. He startled slightly at seeing us, his eyes darting between me and Daniel. Then, without a word, he turned and hurried away down the corridor. Daniel chuckled softly. Looks like even the staff knows something they're not saying. I frowned. What do you mean? He didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, he gestured toward the reception hall. Come on. Let's see how long they can ignore you once you're in plain sight. I hesitated, my heart pounding. But before I could protest, he gently took my arm, not forcefully, but firmly enough to steady me, and led me toward the glow of the chandeliers. The moment we stepped inside, the noise swallowed me whole. Laughter, music, glasses clinking, guests in sparkling dresses and tailored suits gathered in clusters, their conversations buzzing like bees around a hive. The bride's family dominated the front tables, their presence loud and confident. And at the center of it all, my son. He was laughing, his arm around his new wife, looking every bit the charming groom. My heart swelled and broke all at once. I wanted him to see me, to notice me, to show me I still mattered. But his eyes never found mine. Instead, they flickered, just once, toward Daniel. And in that fleeting moment, something in his expression shifted. His smile faltered, just for a heartbeat, before he quickly turned away. Daniel noticed. Of course he did. His voice was low, meant only for me. There it is. He knows. I stared at him, my stomach twisting. Knows what? Daniel's eyes stayed fixed on my son. That I'm here. That I've always been here, whether they wanted to admit it or not. The words sank into me like stones. My son knew him. My son recognized him. But how? The realization hit me slowly, painfully, like cold water trickling down my spine. This wasn't just about me being excluded, or the bride's family looking down on me. This was about something deeper, something I hadn't been told. I turned to Daniel, my voice shaking. Tell me the truth. Why does he know you? Daniel looked at me then, really looked at me, his eyes heavy with something unspoken. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, finally, his voice came, quiet but firm. Because, Claire, I was there long before you realized. And whether you like it or not, part of him, part of your son, belongs to me. I froze. Daniel's words echoed in my mind like a warning bell I wasn't ready to hear. Part of him belongs to me, my son, my little boy, the child I had raised with every ounce of love, patience, and sacrifice. And now Daniel was claiming a connection I had never known existed. I wanted to shout, to demand an explanation, to protect my son from whatever shadow Daniel was conjuring. But the room around us moved too fast, the noise too loud, and I realized I had no words. Daniel's hand rested lightly on my arm, steadying me. His gray eyes softened, but there was steel beneath the kindness. Claire, I'm not here to hurt you. I never was. But you need to know the truth before it's too late. I wanted to pull away. The truth. What truth? He's my son. Everything I did, every sacrifice I made, I raised him. He's mine. He nodded slowly. Yes, he is. But not entirely as you think. You see, the years you thought you spent alone raising him, I was there in ways you didn't notice. The corridor felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls themselves were pressing in. I gripped my clutch tightly, my nails digging into the fabric. Daniel, I don't understand. He inhaled deeply. Remember, when your husband left, when the bills piled up and the nights were long, I helped. I blinked. Memories began to surface. Little things I had forgotten or dismissed. Envelopes with unexpected checks. Notes slipped under the door. A kind stranger helping with Emma when I had to work double shifts. You were there, all those years. My voice trembled. He gave a faint, rueful smile. Always, but I was careful. You had to feel in control, strong. I couldn't step into your life openly. Not then. The sound of glasses clinking inside the hall brought me back. The celebration continued, oblivious to the storm brewing at the door. My son laughed at a joke I could not hear, his wife beaming beside him, and I felt the weight of years of hidden truths pressing on my chest. I swallowed hard. Why are you telling me this now? Daniel's gaze was unwavering. Because tonight, your son will make choices. Choices that will affect the rest of his life, and yours. He doesn't know everything yet. He trusts the wrong people. And if you want to protect him, you need to know what's been hidden. I wanted to protest, to say I didn't need secrets, that I had lived a full life with what I knew, but deep inside, I felt a spark of fear. And also something else, a strange, dangerous hope. What do I need to do? I asked finally. Daniel's eyes flicked toward the center of the reception hall, where my son now raised a glass in a toast. You need to be seen, not ignored, not sidelined, seen. And when the moment is right, you'll have to decide if the truth comes out tonight, or if you stay silent and let them control everything. I nodded, my hands trembling. A mix of anger, fear, and determination coursed through me. I would not be invisible anymore. Not at my son's wedding, not ever again. The music inside swelled, and the guests laughed, clinking their glasses. But outside, in that narrow corridor, a plan began to form. A plan that could change everything in ways no one expected. Not the bride, not her family, not even my son. Daniel squeezed my shoulder gently. Remember, Claire, timing is everything. Wait for the right moment. I took a deep breath. The first spark of courage in years ignited within me. And though I didn't yet know the consequences, I knew one thing for certain. I would not be ignored. The reception hall was glowing with golden light, music, and laughter. Crystal chandeliers reflected on polished floors, and the air was thick with perfume, champagne, and chatter. Guests mingled, smiling, clinking glasses, taking photos of detail meticulously planned to portray perfection. And there I was, outside, hidden in the shadows, but not for long. Daniel leaned closer and whispered. Now, my pulse quickened. I swallowed the lump in my throat and straightened my back. My white hair, softly illuminated by the corridor light, shimmered. My wrinkles, my life's story etched on my face, no longer felt like flaws. They felt like armor. I stepped toward the side door. The music inside swelled with the bride and groom's first dance, laughter echoing in the background. I paused, taking a deep breath, and then walked in. The guests barely noticed me at first. They were too busy watching the couple, sipping champagne, congratulating each other. But then, slowly, whispers began. Isn't that her? My son froze mid-step when he saw me. His smile faltered, confusion flickering across his face. I saw it, the tiny crack in the polished facade of his perfect day. Daniel stayed beside me, his presence calm but unmistakable. His eyes locked on my son's, silently sending a warning. I moved closer, letting the room absorb my presence. I didn't say anything at first. I didn't need to. My eyes, full of years of hurt and resilience, spoke louder than words. The first gasp came from the bride's mother. She straightened in her chair, lips pressed tight, her expression icy. Her friends turned, murmuring under their breaths. The sense of control she had clung to all day began to slip down. Then my son's gaze met mine. Shock, embarrassment, confusion. He opened his mouth, probably to explain, to excuse, to apologize. But the words caught in his throat. I raised my hand slightly, signaling him to stop. My voice was steady when I finally spoke. Sit down, everyone. You've all been celebrating this day, pretending it's perfect. But there's something you need to know. Heads turned, eyes widened, cameras flickered as someone instinctively reached for their phone. I exhaled slowly, letting the words fall. Your idea of perfection has been built on secrets. My son didn't know. My family didn't know. And some of you have tried to erase me from this day entirely. Murmurs spread through the room. The bride clutched her bouquet, her smile gone, replaced by tension. Guests whispered, exchanging shocked glances. I could feel the weight of my own history pressing on me. The years of sacrifice, of being sidelined, of working nights and days to give my son everything, all of it had led to this moment. And I wasn't going to be silent anymore. Daniel stepped forward slightly, giving me the space I needed. His presence alone made the room shift. People sensed it, something from the past, something they didn't understand, but knew they had underestimated. I took a deep breath and looked directly at my son. I am your mother. I raised you with love, with sacrifices, with everything I had, and no one, not her family, not anyone else, can take that away from me. The room was silent. Even the music seemed to pause, as though waiting for someone else to speak, and then a hand reached for a hidden envelope, the one I had kept tucked away all these years. Inside were truths that had been buried, financial records, letters, and secrets that would shake everyone in this room. The first secret began to unravel, slowly, deliberately, and with it, the carefully built illusion of a perfect wedding day began to crumble. I smiled faintly, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Power, not cruel, not vengeful, but the power of finally being seen. Because tonight, they would all remember me, and no one could ever ignore me again. The envelope rested in my hands like a small bomb. I could feel its weight, heavier than paper should ever be. Every whisper in the room seemed to pause, as though the world itself had sensed the coming revelation. I looked around, faces frozen in shock, the bride clutching her bouquet like a shield, guests exchanging worried glances. My son stared, mouth slightly open, eyes wide with confusion and the first spark of fear. I cleared my throat. This envelope contains everything they didn't want you to see: financial records, letters, and decisions made behind your back. Decisions that could have destroyed all of us if left unchecked. A gasp traveled through the room. The bride's mother leaned forward, lips tight, her composure cracking. "Claire, what are you doing?" she hissed, voice trembling. I ignored her. My eyes were locked on my son. "You need to know the truth. Not the story they told you. Not the one everyone wants you to believe. The truth." Slowly, deliberately, I opened the envelope. Inside were papers, neatly stacked but full of secrets. Letters I had kept hidden for years. Receipts showing transfers, payments, and favors that should never have been asked of me. I began to read aloud. "For years, decisions were made without your father. Decisions about money, inheritance, and even choices about this wedding, all meant to control, to silence, to exclude. And tonight, they thought I would sit quietly, smiling, while my family was rewritten in front of my eyes." The room was silent. Even the music that had tried to continue faded into the background. Guests shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension. My son stepped forward, clearly torn between anger and confusion. "Mom, I didn't know." "You didn't know," I interrupted softly, "because they made sure you wouldn't." Daniel stood behind me, calm but commanding. His presence seemed to make the air sharper, colder. He gave me a slight nod, and I understood he had orchestrated this carefully, but he had let me take the lead. I held the envelope higher. "This is why I called him," I said, my voice strong, unwavering. "Because some truths need witnesses, some lies need to be confronted, and some people need to remember that no one can erase the person who raised them." The bride's mother gasped, her voice trembling. "Claire, this is unacceptable." I smiled faintly, with no humor, just quiet, undeniable strength. "Unacceptable," I said. "No, this is necessary." And then, just like that, the first domino fell. Guests murmured, whispers grew louder, and my son's expression shifted from confusion to shock to realization. The wedding he thought was perfect had been built on hidden manipulations, on lies, and on the exclusion of his mother. The first shocking twist was out, and I knew there were more waiting to be revealed. I looked at Daniel. His eyes were steady, but a tiny spark of admiration appeared, not for himself, but for me. Tonight, the perfect wedding illusion was cracking, and there was no turning back. The room was thick with tension. Every eye in the reception hall turned toward me. The whispers had grown louder, but now they were punctuated with disbelief and fear. Guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unsure whether to intervene or stay frozen in shock. I took a deep breath and turned to my son. He was standing near the front, his suit immaculate, his face pale, his eyes wide. The confidence he had displayed moments ago was gone, replaced with something heavier: confusion, guilt, and the first stirring of anger. "Mom, I didn't know," he stammered, his voice barely audible over the murmurs. I stepped closer, feeling the strength of years of hurt and resilience flowing through me. "You didn't know?" I asked. my voice steady but firm. Or you didn't want to know. He swallowed hard. I thought everything was fine. I trusted them. Trusted them. I repeated, disbelief in my tone. Your own mother was pushed out, hidden from your wedding, and you trusted them. You think love works like that? The bride's mother gasped, clutching her pearls, her face flushed. Claire, this is not the time or place. I ignored her. I had no energy left for their control. No, it's the only time and place. Because, tonight, my son, you need to see clearly who stands with you and who has tried to manipulate every moment of your life. Daniel stayed behind me, silent, letting me take the lead. His presence was steady, protective, and unmistakably powerful. I glanced at him for reassurance, and he nodded slightly. I opened another letter from the envelope, the second layer of truths. There are decisions that were made about your inheritance, your money, even your education. Without you, without me, without any of us knowing. They've tried to control your life from the shadows, shaping it to suit their image of perfection. The room went even quieter. People leaned forward, straining to hear. My son's face changed from confusion to shock to a dawning horror. Mom, why didn't anyone tell me? They thought you wouldn't listen, I said softly. They thought you'd follow blindly. But tonight, you're going to see the truth, whether you like it or not. The bride's family exchanged panicked glances. The mother's lips trembled, her eyes darting nervously toward the bride. Even the staff were unsettled, sensing that control had slipped from the powerful hands that had tried to orchestrate this day. Daniel stepped forward slightly. Claire has always been the one who raised him, protected him, and loved him, and she has every right to reveal the truth tonight. I raised my voice, letting it carry through the hall. This wedding might have been beautiful on the surface, but underneath, it's been built on secrets and manipulation, and I won't be silent any longer. Gasps filled the room. Some guests whispered, some murmured in shock. My son's hands trembled slightly, and I realized he was beginning to understand just how much had been hidden from him. And then, the second shocking revelation came to light. I held up one final letter, my voice steady but loud enough for everyone to hear. Your father, the man you trusted, made arrangements behind our backs. Some of them were small, some were enormous, and if you don't see them now, you might never understand why your life has felt shaped by others. The silence was deafening. Every eye followed me. The perfect image of this wedding, of happiness, love, and unity, was crumbling before us, and in that moment, I knew that this night would not be remembered for the music, the flowers, or even the vows. It would be remembered as the night the truth came out, the night a mother refused to be invisible any longer. The reception hall was tense, every guest holding their breath. The soft music that had tried to continue now felt meaningless, drowned out by the weight of the revelations I had begun. My son stood frozen, torn between the world he thought he knew and the reality I was unveiling. I took another step forward, letting the envelope dangle from my hand. Each paper inside held truths, some small, some life-altering, but all undeniable. You've been told stories your whole life, I said, my voice steady, cutting through the silence. Stories that kept you comfortable, kept you obedient, kept you from seeing what was really happening around you. His eyes widened. Mom, what do you mean? I gestured toward the bride's family. They've controlled this day, controlled your choices, and tried to make me invisible. Every gift, every instruction, every word of praise was designed to shape you to their image, and you didn't even know it. The bride's mother gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Claire, stop this immediately. I ignored her. My son needed to hear this. The room felt thick, almost suffocating, as if the chandeliers themselves were leaning closer to witness the truth. Daniel stepped beside me, his presence calm but commanding. Claire isn't lying. Every word is true. And the question now is, what will you do with it, young man? My son's face was pale, his lips trembling. I had no idea. I thought, I trusted you all, trusted them, I repeated, my voice rising slightly, filled with the pain of years I had hidden. Look at them. Do you still think they had your best interests at heart? Or do you see what they tried to do? Control, manipulate, erase me from your life. Whispers ran through the guests. Some looked shocked, others ashamed, and a few exchanged guilty glances. The facade of perfection was cracking faster than anyone could stop. I held up the most damning letter, the one that proved how deeply they had tried to influence my son's future. your inheritance, your decisions, even your freedom. All meticulously manipulated without your knowledge, and they thought I would sit quietly, but I won't, not tonight, not ever. My son looked down, a mix of guilt and realization on his face. Mom, I didn't know it was that bad. I stepped closer, tears threatening to spill but held back by sheer will. You didn't know because you were told lies, because they kept you blind. But now you can choose. Will you continue to let them dictate your life? Or will you finally see the truth? The bride looked shocked, her hand clutching her bouquet. Her family's composure was crumbling, faces flushing with panic. Daniel's eyes locked with mine, silent encouragement clear. Finally, my son spoke, his voice low but firm. Mom, I see now. I should have noticed sooner. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. It wasn't a full apology, not yet, but it was enough. Enough to show he was beginning to understand. I exhaled slowly. The tension in my chest eased, just slightly, but I knew the night wasn't over. There were still secrets, still truths to reveal, still battles to be faced. The room remained silent, the first wave of shock settling like dust in sunlight, and in that quiet, I realized something important. The power I had feared losing had never left me. It had only waited for the right moment. Tonight, it had returned. The room had grown still, almost reverent. The whispers had subsided, replaced by a heavy tension that hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. My son's eyes darted between me and the bride's family, searching for answers, grappling with a reality that had been carefully hidden from him all his life. I took a step forward, holding the final letter in my hand. Its contents were the culmination of years of secrets and hidden truths, evidence of the manipulations, lies, and power plays that had tried to control not only my son, but the life I had built for him. Everyone needs to hear this, I said, my voice steady and commanding, not just for today, but so the future can be different. You need to see what has been done in the shadows, the full truth of this family's manipulations. I handed the letter to my son. His hands trembled slightly as he took it. He looked up at me, fear and disbelief written across his face. Mom, this can't be real, he whispered, almost in shock. It is real, I said, and it's been real for years. They've made choices for you, for your future, for this wedding, without your knowledge or consent. They thought I wouldn't fight. They thought I would let them erase me from your life. But tonight, that ends. The bride's family paled, their carefully constructed composure crumbling. The mother opened her mouth, then closed it again, unable to find words. The bride's lips trembled as she realized the foundation of her perfect day was collapsing. Daniel stepped beside me, silent but present, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this fight. His gaze held mine, and I felt a surge of courage, the kind that only comes when you know the truth must be spoken. I spoke again, louder this time, addressing everyone in the room. This wedding, this celebration, may have seemed perfect, but perfection built on deception isn't worth anything. And if you want this family to survive, to heal, the lies have to stop here. My son read through the letter, his expression darkening as the truth sank in. Then, finally, he looked at me. Mom, I'm sorry. I never should have let them. I should have seen you. Tears welled in my eyes, but I kept my posture strong. It's not too late. You can still choose what kind of man, what kind of son you want to be. But you have to be honest with yourself, with me, and with everyone here. The room remained tense, the air thick with emotions, shock, guilt, and a sense of reckoning. Guests whispered nervously, realizing the perfect facade had been shattered. Even the staff exchanged glances, sensing the shift in power and authority. And then, something unexpected happened. My son's wife stepped forward, her eyes wide, her voice trembling. I didn't know any of this. I want to do the right thing. The moment was fragile, yet powerful. The weight of the past years, the manipulations, the exclusion, it all hung in the air like a storm's calm before the final rain. I exhaled, feeling the tension ease slightly. Daniel's hand brushed mine, a quiet gesture of support. And in that moment, I knew something important. The truth had the power to heal, to reset, and to give the next chapter of our lives a chance to be real. This night wasn't just about a wedding. It was about reclaiming the life that had been hidden, silenced, and reshaped by others. And tonight, that life was finally mine again, visible, undeniable, and unbroken. The room was quiet now. The storm of whispers, shock, and tension had passed, leaving a fragile calm. My son stood before me, letter in hand, a mixture of guilt, understanding, and newfound respect in his eyes. The bride and her family had stepped back, their perfect image shattered but forced to reckon with reality. I looked around the hall, taking in the crystal chandeliers, the golden light, the elegant tables, the same wedding I had watched from the sidelines only hours ago. And yet, everything felt different. Nothing could ever feel the same after the truths that had been revealed. My heart was full, not with the relief of victory, but with the quiet satisfaction of being seen, of reclaiming my place, of knowing that the love I had poured into my son had not been erased, no matter how much others had tried. I took a deep breath, letting the emotions settle. Life is never perfect, I said softly, my voice carrying through the room. And family. Family is never simple, but the moments that matter are the ones where truth, courage, and love meet. Those are the moments that define us. My son stepped closer, gently taking my hand. Mom, I promise, I'll never let anyone push you aside again. I see you now, all of you. Tears ran down my face, and I smiled, knowing that this was more than a wedding revelation. This was a reset, a chance to rebuild, to heal, and to move forward without fear. Daniel gave me a subtle nod from across the room. He had helped orchestrate the timing, but this victory was mine alone. I looked around one last time and thought of everyone watching our story, the people who might feel invisible, unheard, or sidelined in their own lives. If you're still here, please don't forget to subscribe to Myla Stories. I share stories that come straight from the heart. I smiled gently at the camera, my eyes soft but steady. And to everyone watching, have the courage to face the truths in your own lives. Speak them, own them, and never let anyone make you feel invisible. Your voice matters, your story matters, always. I paused, letting the words sink in. Then, with a final glance at my son, I added, have you ever had to confront a truth that changed everything in your family? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Share your story. You might inspire someone else to be brave too. The music resumed softly, in the background, the wedding continuing in its imperfect, human way. But in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I had been sidelined, overlooked, and even betrayed. But now, I was seen. Now, I was heard. And for the first time in a long time, I felt fully alive. The night ended not in chaos, but in quiet strength. A reminder that even in the darkest moments, courage, truth, and love have the power to change everything. The music resumed softly in the background, the wedding continuing in its imperfect, human way. But in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I had been sidelined, overlooked, and even betrayed. But now I was seen. Now I was heard. And for the first time in a long time, I felt fully alive. The night ended, not in chaos, but in quiet strength, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, courage, truth, and love have the power to change everything. If you're still here, please don't forget to subscribe to Myla Stories. I share stories that come straight from the heart. I looked into the camera, my voice gentle but steady. Have you ever faced a moment when family betrayed your trust? Or had to confront a truth that changed everything? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your stories and thoughts in the comments below. Your experience might give someone else the courage to speak up too. Remember, I added, no matter how hidden or complicated the truth is, your voice matters. Your story matters. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is just show up and be seen.